Hello, I'm Sammy and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be talking about the creation of my Lucina and my Diva piece. I started the Lucina pose very loose. Finding the pose was actually really hard for me. I had kind of an idea of what I wanted to do, but I kept messing it up, trying to figure out something decent. You see me struggle here a lot, and it's actually something you'll see with this Lucina piece a lot, is just how much I struggled with it, which is honestly fine. I decided to leave them in the videos, so you'll see more of them as I continue to mess up. The Diva sketch was actually a lot easier to do. I started with just a few simple thumbnail sketches, but I actually really quickly found a design that I liked, and so I decided to go with that design. We'll move more onto that, but first let's go into the refinement of the Lucina piece. I moved into the refined sketch for Lucina, where I started to add a lot of the detail and the proper costume for her. Again, here I continued to make the pose better. I still wasn't loving the sketch at this point, but I continued to try to make it better. You want to make sure when doing a piece that you have a solid sketch before moving into the colors and refinement, or else your piece will actually end up feeling very weak. Early on, when I was starting, I even make this mistake now, which is really unfortunate, but I would have a half decent sketch, and then I would say good enough, and I would try to make it good with the colors. But if you're not happy with how the sketch is looking, then you're not going to be happy with the finished result, because the foundation of the piece is going to be very weak, and you don't want that. For this Lucina piece, I struggled with it for a while. I do actually really enjoy the finished result. I think it could have been better. That's part of art. So after I kind of figured out how I wanted everything to look, I just went through with a more refined sketch, just to go over everything again. That way the lines were much nicer. Not an inking sketch, or like an ink pass, but just a much more refined look for it, to make sure the lines were a lot more solid. That way I had something good to work with once I got to the painting step. Refining the Diva sketch was actually a lot simpler than Lucina's sketch. I actually really liked the original sketch I had, even though it was really messy. I did actually struggle with her arms for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with them. They looked wrong, and it was probably because the shoulders were tilted wrong, and so I decided to put one arm behind and then one arm on her hip. Later I actually turned it into a hand in the pocket, because I figured it's a hoodie, so make use of the hoodie pockets. But I found a pose that I thought was really cute, and I added some extra refined lines like I did with the Lucina piece, just to make sure that I didn't have to deal with the messy lines, and it actually looked really good. It looked really cute, so really thought that the sketch there turned out well. Definitely gonna continue to work on my anatomy for my characters. It's somewhere I've been kind of weak. Okay, so this is an interesting part of the stage. See, I started by turning the opacity on my sketch layer down really low, and then traced it out with a border to then fill it in with a gray color. The thing that makes this part interesting, though, is I'm actually showing you a stage where I just kept messing up and really didn't like how it was looking. So this entire part here, other than adding the base backdrop for my character to work on, I really didn't like the rendering I was doing here. So I was trying to figure out the skin, I was trying to figure out how I wanted it to look. I tried the hair, maybe it would make it look better. I actually really didn't like it, so in the end I actually ended up, it was like half an hour of work trying to get that rendering to look good. And I ended up just dunking it, and starting over my rendering, which we'll see in the next phase for a Lucina piece. But I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that it's actually okay to not like how it's going, and to just dunk it and try over. I try to make sure I format my layers in a way that I don't lose what I had right before it, so I can jump back a stage if I don't like it. Just to make sure you guys know that it is okay to ditch something if you really don't like how it's going. Continuing with the trend of my Diva piece, honestly just turning out much better than my Lucina piece, I started my Diva piece with some basic rendering. To do this, I again traced around the character and added a base color, then using the clipping mask tool so that I wouldn't draw outside where my character was, I started with a pink base color, though honestly the base color doesn't really matter that much. Pink was just a nice color to look at, and it felt very diva-like. But then I just started to add colors on top of it. Honestly, I have this huge mess here that I like to work with. Keeps things really loose. It took me a while. I'm still working on it, but learning how to work within this mess to make something good. It just helps you be really loose, helps you design it better, because you're gonna mess up your rendering several times as you're trying to make it better. So just trying to work in layers, taking step by step, being okay with the mess. And honestly, I mean, just like right here, seeing the skin like invades into the hair and the hat, and to just be okay with that, because you're gonna be painting over it in just a minute. So just trying to be okay with that. Embrace the mess. Learning to work with it. It's really weird when you first start, especially if you worked with line art and everything is in its place, which is nice and neat. But once you get used to this type of rendering, it is definitely better. I'm not even going to say that I am used to it yet. It's still something I'm trying to figure out. But definitely worth it. It gives you a lot more freedom once you learn how to use it. So be okay with the extra sucking at first. Back to the Lucina piece. Giving the rendering another go. This time, I definitely think it went much better. I attribute part of that to just trying to stay much looser than I had been. I was too rigid. I worked on this Lucina piece right after Christmas break, and so I hadn't been doing a lot of rendering recently. And so it took a little bit of time to get back into it, get back into the flow of work. So the second time around, I think it was definitely going much better. I actually want to take this time to talk about something important. Working on multiple pieces at a time. So I'm currently showing these two different pieces to show. It's okay to work on more than one piece at a time. I have found that even myself, and I'm still trying to get better at this, you start a piece, and then you don't stop working on it until it is done. And that actually makes your work suffer, because, and I know that I'm not the only one out there, but how common it is does depend for artists, but you just have this, you try to push through, like, it's not looking good, but you're just going to try to push through anyways to get the piece done, and I think that's a bad way to go about it. I think the better way to be going about it is to have 2 or even 3 pieces, depending on how many you think you can handle, but 2 is a good spot to start, to just jump back and forth between working on 2 images. So I did the Lucina sketches, then I stopped and I went over to the Diva sketches, and then the basic coloring for Lucina, then the basic coloring for Diva. And so I've even formatted my video in that way to show you. This way, whenever you come back with a fresh eye, a fresh view. That way you can see the problems more clearly, and you don't get tunnel vision on what needs to happen. Alright, and now we move on to the polish for our Diva piece. This is the phase where you want to make sure that the brush strokes move into each other perfectly. You want to make sure that each shape is its own shape and all of that beautiful jazz that makes, well, each shape feel like its own shape. Making sure that there's defined lines between, say, the jacket and the pants, the shirt and the skin, the hat and the hair. But also just adding some last minute details. So I added the logo on her hat. I add the green logo on, like the green name tag on her shirt. I used the multiply layer to add some extra shadow where I thought some shadow could be deepened without affecting the colors too much. And I actually used an add layer with an airbrush and just went around the side adding some extra shading. The Lucina polish was actually quite simple. I added some extra lights using the add layer, then just a little extra shadow using the multiply layer. Added some gold trimming to the clothes, and then just made sure to, again, refine the shapes, like the hands, and then added a fun backdrop and called it finished. I hope you enjoyed the creation of these 2 pieces. The point I really hope you got from this video is that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to mess up a lot. But pushing through and making sure to make them a finished piece is what makes you improve, because there is no way you're going to make a complete piece without running into any troubles. Or at least if you are, you're not pushing yourself to be the best artist you can be. Again, that being said, I would definitely suggest working on 2 pieces at a time. That way, as you get stuck with one, you can just work on the other one. That way you can keep learning and drawing without having to just feel like you have to push through and lessen the content of your piece, because sometimes you push through and you don't fully fix it. You don't draw the hand, you end up hiding it, honestly, kind of like I did the diva hands, but that was not purposeful, so that's different. Don't judge me. But then, you know, that shadow that doesn't feel quite right, you just kind of skip it because you can't figure out what's wrong with it. But honestly, if you just move on to a different piece for an hour, then come back, it is typically much clearer and so much easier to see what needs to be done to fix it, because then you come back with fresh eyes and a better view. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this first video on my channel. I hope you guys will definitely subscribe and stick around. My Instagram is going to be in the description below, so make sure to go over to my Instagram. Follow me there. Honestly, I will probably be posting a lot of pictures to Instagram that won't end up on my YouTube channel. So if you want to see everything I'm creating, make sure to follow me on Instagram. And until the next video, I guess I'll see you guys later. I hope you come back to Sammy's studio.